Hello, and welcome to another Rang Rouge unit of the week. And today we're taking a look at the T-72. The T-72 is the tank. Just like the T-34 or the T-55, it's one of the most prevalent tanks used in the world. Over 40 countries are still using it, and you've probably seen a lot of them get blown up in Ukraine. The story of the tank is quite interesting and long-winded. If you want the full explanation, I'd recommend checking out the Tank Museum's Tank Chat on the T-72, as it does a pretty good job. But we're just going to summarise all of that in a couple minutes. So in the late 60s, you have this bloke called Alexander Morozov, who designed this tank called the T-64. This brand new high-tech tank which will revolutionise the Soviet tank forces that will outdo anything which NATO has. It has a new 125mm gun with an autoloader, laminate armor, all this fancy equipment. It's going to be the bee's knees. However, there's quite a lot of internal conflict within a lot of arms designers in the Soviet Union at that time, because this is an expensive tank and a complicated tank, especially for a conscript army to use. Another bloke called Leonid Kostev, who owns a rival company, decides, hey, we could probably do better in this, and simplifies the design. Basically, he designed a prototype, and this prototype becomes the T-72. However, the internal arms ministry of the Soviet Union didn't exactly like this Leonid bloke going ahead designing his own tank. They don't really exactly enjoy rivalry between their own companies, as it produces race. However, Leonid managed to show off this new T-72 tank, or the prototype at least, and convinces them that they should go along with both tank designs, the T-72 being a cheaper, more expedient model. Both tanks would enter into service and more serious production in the early to mid 70s, and I think it's safe to say that the T-72 ended up being the superior design, as the T-72 and its many derivatives are still in service today, while the T-64 and T-80 are in rather limited service. And this is due to the fact that most countries, in the end of the day, just need a tank. And a tank is a tank, so you might as well just go with the cheaper one. In-game, the baseline T-72 is a 40-point main battle tank, available to a variety of nations, such as the East Germans, the Soviets, the Czechs, and the Poles. It has 2 weapons. Your weapon loadout includes your standard Soviet classic of the 125mm cannon with 28 rounds of ammunition. It is also a Soviet 125, so it has an autoloader, which is a hidden stat. Basically, autoloader means that you have the same rate of fire even when you're under heavy duress of being shot at. Anyway, you have 1900 meter range, 45% accuracy, 25% while moving, 13 AP, 4 HE, and 7 rounds a minute. A pretty decent all-round cannon, not great in any aspect apart from high explosives, but it's not terrible either. And then you have your standard 50 caliber machine gun for machine gun needs. Up down to miscellaneous stats, it has 11 front armor, 6 at side, 3 at back, and 2 on the top. Standard 10 HP, medium size, poor optics, a speed of 60 km off-road, 110 on the road, poor stealth, a damn good autonomy of 700 km, and type restricted to support mechanized and armored decks. So, in battle, the T-72 is the tank. It's the standard, basic Eastern Bloc tank. And for being the standard, basic Eastern Bloc tank, it's really not that bad. Yes, it's going to lose out against the majority of tank fights, against a lot of NATO tanks which get brought up, because NATO usually brings up some more higher end 80 to 100 point tanks as baseline, but for 40 points, you get a damn good deal with the T-72. The main rule of the baseline T-72 is a CQC cheap shock spam tank. Because for 40 points, if it dies, who cares? You got many more of them available and it's a drop in a bucket. But for that 40 points, you have just enough armor to survive 1 or 2 anti-tank shots from infantry or mid-range NATO tanks. You have 4 high explosive power, which is pretty damn good, meaning that you demolish NATO infantry squads faster. You have an autoloader, which means that even when you're under heavy duress or a lot of rockets coming your way, you're gonna be shooting just the same. And the cannon does a decent enough job against enemy armored vehicles at close range. Yes, at long range fights you're going to lose, but if you're in a forest fight against an 80 to 100 point tank, the T-72 can come out ahead. And really, Blue 4 doesn't have a tank which really matches all the categories which the T-72 follows. A lot of them, especially the earlier 60s like Leopards and AMXs, don't have enough armor. You get Abrams, which can get a bit expensive. The only real comparisons I could say are the Chieftain Mark II, but even then that's slow and no autoloader. It does have 4 HE, and the STRV with its ridiculous rate of fire on the cannon, but that's also quite a bit more expensive. In regards to taking it in decks, it is definitely a worthwhile tank to take, because it does fill in that cheap tank spam category, which frankly you don't really need, especially on certain maps. But if you do have the extra slots to spare in your tank tab after getting the necessary mid to high end range tanks, a card of T-72s can provide an awesome amount of fire support, whether you're playing Soviets, Poles, Czech, Eastern Bloc, etc. Overall, the baseline T-72 is really just good enough for the battlefield, especially for the price. But really, all you need is good enough, and it does fill in a very useful role of just getting right into the thick of things, and well, sometimes coming out on top, but most of the time it blows up, but you usually get your points worth out of it. And well, I'm gonna leave it off at that. This has been another Rang Rouge Unit of the Week. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. And usual, please just take it easy.